Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman, before that, do the pledge allegiance.
Yeah, I had that and I was pulling it up here. I was going to do that next. Well, so we've made a motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, Mr. Smith, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, public comments.
We've got two folks signed up. First is Reverend Murphy.
All right, Dante Murphy.
Mr. Chairman, you have your statement to read.
Yeah, let me get in here now.
There's a printed one on your. It's under the green folder.
Oh, gosh, right beside it. All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me read this statement, and we've got, is there 9 in here right now?
It's 10.
Okay, so if we have one more, we would. Okay, it says the Pender County Board of Education welcomes comments from our parents, students, and community. The public comment period is open for members of the public, including parents and students, to voice compliments, concerns, or complaints about performance of school personnel, implementation of board policy, the quality of the education program, or school facilities. Each person is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation. This portion of the meeting is for the board to hear matters of interest from the public. However, obscene, vulgar, or profane statements and statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or imminently threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Hall, I am here this evening simply to see what type of decisions this board has made since your last meeting. Here's what's disturbing to me. One, I do not understand how school systems hire people with records. You wouldn't hire a teacher with a record that your attorney has. And I didn't know that this reprimand existed when I was voicing my opposition to hiring an outside attorney to do an investigation. But it's exacerbated, the problem with this is exacerbated because I did find it. And my question is, we've seen this before. The question comes to my mind, first of all, you mean to tell me that all the attorneys in North Carolina, you had to choose one with a record? That's troubling to me. In regard to the independent investigation, I don't want any of you all to think that concern was raised just because I woke up and felt like it was something that wasn't legitimate. I've seen what happens in these independent investigations. I was dead in the middle of that New Hanover County scandal. So I know what I go on. Lawyers are when you hire a lawyer, they're your lawyer. They're not there to protect the interests of the people or the children. Their job is to give this board, they're mandated, the best representation they can give you. And if that means making stuff go away, they are masters at it. My only proposal to you all was to use the law. That's why it was written. So, and you said on news that you are not equipped to do investigations. That's not what the law was designed for. The law was designed when there are problems within your system to subpoena those employees, bring them before the board, and ask simple questions. Now, you could have paid a lawyer to ask the questions, but this business about outside independent investigations, it's a sham. And as far as I'm concerned, it's been proven to be that. And if I was a teacher, I would not go talk to any of your lawyers unless I had one myself.
Oh, time.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you. Who's going?
I'm going to excuse you so I can speak. Is that okay? Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for granting me this opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I'm going to read my comments so I can be in accordance with your 3 minutes. I'm respectfully requesting that my comments tonight be placed in the official records of this meeting. I'm very disappointed that this Board of Education has not scheduled, or their staff has not responded to my documents request made pursuant to my letter to Superintendent Hill on June 19, 2020. And subsequently to my agreement, June 26, 2020, to give the school board an additional 10 days to provide me with the requested information. The deadline was extended yesterday, the deadline was up on yesterday, Monday, July 13, 2020. The board has acted in bad faith and contrary to North Carolina law in responding to my documents request, in my opinion. I believe that this board does not want me or even the taxpayers of Pender County to know how much money the school board is paying to its attorney and outside attorneys that the school board has hired over the past 5 years to handle cover-up matters that the school system has been involved in. Whether you agree or not, the citizens and taxpayers and I have a right to know how much of our money has been spent. Also, we have a right to know why we were paying an attorney from Raleigh to drive 2 hours to any meetings that he attend, and how much it costs for each of us each time he starts his car to drive to Pender County or vice versa. If we hired local attorneys from southeastern North Carolina, their costs for travel would be significantly less. The savings in money is something that the board could spend for the betterment of our students and teachers, and again, in my opinion. Each of you as board members are supposed to be good stewards of taxpayers' money. For now, I see that each of you disregard, in my opinion, your duty to spend the taxpayers' money unwisely. Also, I question if Superintendent Hill is a good steward of taxpayers' money. Some of the records that I've requested relates to his travel expense and whether he may be taking advantage of his position by not reporting all of his expenses when he travels. Your failure to reproduce the requested documents to me yesterday sends a clear message to me, very clear, and to the citizens and the taxpayers of Pender County, that this board is wanting to hide possibly something. What that something is, I am uncertain at this time. However, the rule of law will ultimately prevail. When it does, each of you will be responsible for what you are hiding. I ask you to stop paying 2 Raleigh-based law firms and give those additional dollars to our deserving teachers who do not receive such a luxurious travel package to work every day to educate the children of Pender County. Respectfully submitted to this board. Thank you much.
Thank you. All right, under information, Pender County Schools Reopening Task Force, Dr. Hill and Dr. Aiken.
Yes, sir, Board, we've been discussing this with you, and what we're gonna do is kind of go over, what we've shared with, on? I apologize, I didn't have my mic on. What we'd like to do is do a quick overview of where we're at with the planning process. Today, the governor announced that we will start with Plan B, and today we'll discuss with you the options we have and where we're at with the surveys, as much information we have from staff and the parents and the families of Pender County, and hopefully where we hope to have something for you to vote on in the very, very near future. Dr. Reagan.
Good evening, members of the board. I think most of you have sort of seen this. I thought I'd kind of run through in light of the news today, highlight a few of the things that are most pressing. This is the same presentation that we used with our larger community advisory group that we met with, and the video that just came from it. So I won't.
I need you to be at the microphone, or at least holding the microphone.
Okay.
Probably start.
You may want to get a light. I don't think we like the microphone.
Better. Good evening, members of the board. This is the presentation that we used previously with our advisory team meeting that we met with last Thursday, and the resulting video that was shared with you. Wanted to kind of run through a few things, especially in light of today's announcement by the governor. So I won't go through everything. However, please stop me at any point if there's any questions or something that I've skipped that you did kind of want to go back to. One of the things that we shared was sort of a timeline of what's sort of been going on ever since March 14th, which was the governor's first executive order closing schools for instruction. That kind of turned us into an overnight online system like every other system, and that really was, we kind of went through this phase where we kept waiting for deadlines, something would be decided, and we kind of kept going. The next sort of thing to be aware of that impacts us moving forward was on May 2nd, the state legislature passed several bills. The one that's probably most impactful right now was the August 17th deadline, which is when we must start school, and that we had to have a certain number of remote learning, or I'm trying to get away from that phrase and just say online learning, but we had to have 5 online learning days. And then initially it said that we had the first 5 days of school had to be face-to-face, and so there's been some ongoing talk about that. We sort of shared, and this is something just to let the board know, we keep talking about this guidance that's coming out. Really, there's only been 2 major documents that has come out. One was what's called the Strong Schools North Carolina. That is the Department of Health and Human Services guidelines. That was the first document that dropped. That's actually the one that mentions Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. So if someone ever asks kind of where those plans come from, they actually came from the Department of Health and Human Services. About 2 days later, we got the larger document from the State Board and Department of Public Instruction, and that's the one that's been called the Guiding Your Way or Lighting Our Way document. That's roughly about 134 pages of information, suggestions, models, recommendations, and so forth. They have been revised several times since then, and based on today, I'm not sure if there'll be another revision. Some of what the governor shared today was straight off of that document. Some of it was not. The most pressing one that I would share that was not previously is the requirement that all students, kindergarten through 12th grade, wear a mask. That was not previously in there. So some of it was literal. There were references to things like use, the 6-foot rule in classrooms. We'll be waiting to see whether there's some clarification in either of these documents about specifically what that means. But those are really the only 2 things that we kind of have to go by. And like I said, they've been officially revised several times, and I would anticipate there'll be something more after today as far as additional information being in there, whether it be for transportation or for the actual schools. I will say another change that was announced today was previously when they talked about Plan B, it was that students would probably go to school partly in person, and really all systems would have to by default do some online. It never said that, but I think every school system read it that way. And then we knew there was a Plan C that was all students being online. One phrase the governor used today that was new was the reference that all students had to have the option of online in addition to running a Plan B. That was not to this point something that was that specific. So, a lot of us had talked about as districts providing that option, but today's announcement turned it from something that we would try to do to something that we will do. So that was another one that was a little bit different than what we had previously intended to see. I won't belabor these. We did talk about the different plans at that time with the committee. We talked about the guidance. It comes down really in 10 different areas that cover everything from social distancing to cleaning and hygiene to even things like water and ventilation systems. And there actually is a section regarding coping and resilience, social and emotional learning for both our students and our staff. So we talked briefly about that. We did share with everyone kind of what Plan A was, which is, has been basically the one where everyone comes to school with some restrictions. Of course, the governor talked about Plan B today, and we are already working on that. We also talked about Plan C. So one thing I just want to bring up to the board, we are developing a remote or online learning plan. We'd already have been required to do that anyway. Of course, now it will be something that we're offering to students if they request it. There are 15, and I'll see if I can maybe blow that up, make it a little bit easier. Department of Public Instruction is requiring 15 different areas to be addressed. Most of them are things we've already been doing. So, for example, it talks about stakeholder involvement, and it also asks about, expect school systems to check on things like internet access for staff and students. We have already been engaged in that. We're actually doing our second round of surveying of parents and students when we're in the middle of one for staff, which I'll show you some early results we've already seen. We are already working on expanding the number of schools that can be drive-up hotspots. Our technology department did a great job in creating some during the middle of all this, and we're working very hard that by August, any of our 17 buildings that are ours, so the only one not being Pender Early College, would be able to be drive-up hotspots. Our instructional team has been working really hard redesigning some of the pacing guides and year-to-glance documents, because now we really had to talk a lot about that fourth quarter. And while I think our teachers did an amazing job building an online program overnight, we know that that was not something we had prepared for a while. So our teachers are really concerned about how do we assess those fourth quarter standards. So we're redesigning some of that. And you may hear sometimes we talk about priority standards, the things that are most important to teach. Well, now we've got not only the things that are most important to teach, but you got to do it face to face. So we're going back and saying, okay, well, what if we had to do online can be done online? What absolutely really needs the teacher and the student together? So we're redesigning that. So we're trying to do a lot of curriculum work. We are trying to expand our online presence. Thanks to the board, we have really expanded our virtual academy presence, and we're working with Apex Learning and several other programs. So we're going to be ready to submit, and what I'd like to do is, if we have a meeting next week, bring to you kind of a full-fleshed form, just so you know what's going to happen with it. DPI literally is going to take it, walk it down to Raleigh, and turn it into the legislature. There is no feedback. There is no plans for, hey, Pender County. They are going to collect all of it and turn it into Raleigh, and our DPI colleagues have been point blank about that. They have no plans on providing feedback. However, I did ask today, what happens if the board changes their mind? And then we submit a plan and they don't like it. They said, great, you can change it. They're not too concerned about it at this point. So, but our team has done a great job, and I'd like to kind of bring it back and let you see the full details and kind of go from there, especially now that we know not only do we have Plan C, if we go there, we have to essentially offer every student the opportunity to go to Plan C if they choose on their own to do so. So we'll bring that to you. We are knee-deep in trying to draft health and safety protocols. Of course, this is how fast things change. We had a pretty good one. Now we already know we have to adapt that because masks will be worn by every student. That's not something we have in there because that just happened in the last couple hours. But we have that. We've been sharing it with stakeholders, getting feedback on that. And we just, of course, now this slide is already old. This was the one we shared last week about 6th through 12th grade wearing it. And I think just sort of end on the last thing I want to talk about, the timeline. That has been compressed, obviously, with recent changes, and I know we were hoping to come back as soon as next week with a full Plan B for the board to take a look at. If we have time, I'd like to kind of show you the surveys on where we are with staff, just to give you a sense. Can we turn the lights? I think it's going to be hard for the board to see. Ooh, here we go. All right, so thanks to Craig Lawson and our technology team, this is a dashboard version of the staff survey that we sent out. Went live Thursday night, if I remember correctly, Thursday, Friday. And we said to give it the weekend, and then we asked principals beginning yesterday to start making personal contact with anyone that hadn't filled it out yet, because we really do want everyone's input. The things that I would probably highlight for you, so the first question here, we just sort of asked our staff about their connectivity issues, and this so far has matched what we found in the spring. We did have some staff who did not have internet access, and that's borne out here a little bit. We also know that we had sort of a range of reliability, and that's sort of the middle color. Most of our staff do have pretty reliable and quality internet, but not all. And so some of the things we did last year about that was we did give out some of the hotspots to certain staff members, and of course once our buildings were allowed to be opened up a little bit, we did let our staff come back in and access that. The next one, we did ask what's their comfort level in coming back, and depending on what you read or which news outlet, you'll see anywhere from about 15 to as high as 25-30% of districts reporting that staff are either unwilling or uncomfortable about coming back. Right now, our survey is 11%. Now, that's staff overall. It's not necessarily specific to teachers or instructional assistants. That's the collective. We did ask for the role, so we can go back and look in the individual spreadsheets and see that. We did ask the question about masks, determining their health concerns for masks. We do have some that are reporting that. And because we knew that the Plan B was on the table, one of the things that our staff, of course, have been concerned about is this question of, if I'm teaching on one day, but I have a school-aged child who that's not the day they're scheduled to go. So we wanted to capture some of that concern. And what you're seeing is about 35% of the staff that have responded do have that concern. The last thing on this one that I really want to bring to your attention is, there are so many models out there that are being floated by districts in this state and across the country for how to do school. What we said was, what are the 4 that we seem to see the most common? And that was what we asked our staff. And we kind of said there are really 2 variations of the by day model, and then there are kind of 2 leading variations by the week. And rather than try to ask people to go through all of them, we just selected the 4 most common. What this is seeing is, so blue that was the first choice. If it's green, it was the second choice. Orangish is third, and then this reddish color was the 4th. So these are the 2 days that are options. So this one is Monday, Tuesday with one group, Wednesday, Thursday with another group, and then Fridays would be online for all. And like we did this year, the Fridays would become the days the teachers would have department meetings, PLCs. Our resource teachers would step in and make sure they're connecting to people, that kind of idea. And then this one is the same concept, except Wednesdays would be the day off, and some of the thought behind that has been you would have a day to do deep cleaning, which then would be followed by 2 days, and then you have the weekend. So that's the 48-hour period. We could clean Friday night, have the weekend, and then a new cohort comes in on Monday. So it provides a little bit of a safety possibility kind of during the middle of the week. The last 2 that you see, this was when we asked staff 1 week. So Group A would come in for a week and then go out for a week, and Group B would come in. And then the last one was 2 weeks. Group A would come in for 2 weeks at a shot and then go out. And you can see that those are, you're not necessarily getting as much. So, major takeaways, the staff is leaning toward a day option. that we do have some staff that are concerned, but it is well below what you're seeing nationally, certainly even across the state. I think I saw one district at least reported 35% of its staff was saying they weren't going to come back, and to give our teachers credit, that's not a common trait. An update on the parent one. So 1991 is the current total. This went live Monday around 9:30, and we've already received close to 2,000 responses. Very similar questions. We asked, please let us know any of the schools that you have students attending. We asked where the grades that your students are in. So we have 1,900, almost 2,000 responses, but it represents a much larger number of students. When I checked earlier today, was talking with the principal at that point, we were around 1,600 responses, and that accounted for around 2,400 students. So obviously, people responding with more than one student. So at that point, we were already closing in on a third of our students being represented. Similar questions. We did ask, sort of the blunt one, if we go back to in-person instruction, what is your thought about returning? These numbers have been pretty flat since last night. They tick up a little bit here and there. And of course, with the recent announcement from the governor, we will see kind of how that plays. In a perfect world, we actually would have launched it once and then launched it again and compared the before and after. But we did ask the parents the same question about days versus weeks. And again, the parent community is leaning toward days. Over 50%, 56% at this point, leaning toward one of the day options. We also asked about the possibility of at least a 9th through 12th grade virtual academy or virtual option. And what you sort of see here in color is, so 15% have said yes, they would be interested in that. 21% are saying no, that's just not something they're interested in. And then about 11%, 10.8, are asking for more information. Ms. Winstead, who has been our lead on this, she and I have been talking the last couple of days. She has seen a slight uptick. Right now we have 30 applications in hand, with 5 that we're waiting for to come in. So we've kind of, and it was around, before this week it was around 15. So we've definitely seen an uptick. We did ask about, we wanted to give our community a chance to talk about the issue of the alternating days and how will that impact daycare. 63% are saying it wouldn't be too big a deal. 38% though have said that is a concern of theirs. We also asked about busing. Our transportation department had worked really, really, really hard prior to all this to get an idea of the bus list. And normally we have about half of our students, between 50 and 60%, that indicate they're going to ride. Right now, this indicates that 37% would have their students ride a bus. So, a natural drop-off with latest information.
Run quick, can you run back up to the top of the?
Yes, sir.
Show the schools that's responded so far?
Yes, sir. Let's see if I can. It helps a little bit to see a little bit bigger.
So that's what I was thinking was happening. There's one population
Weighted.
of the county that's responded more.
And they represent a larger proportion of the students.
So it's important to everybody out there listening that they get their
Need to,
feedback
yes.
in, so they're.
And actually, I don't know if you noticed, but if I believe that's what it was, just a few minutes ago, Mr. Riley sent one out. So as a parent, while I was waiting out in the lobby, I got my reminder to do that. And I think we're also working on doing a Spanish language one as well. And we're still putting out more posters and signs encouraging. But yes, sir, you're correct. We were going to leave this open until the end of Thursday night. The more, the better. And we've gone
Because
up.
the east side numbers right now are skewing the whole thing. I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah,
are
'cause you got
skewing.
West Pender, only 26 people, it looks like.
Yep.
Some of them you have less than 6% of the people responded. Virgo Middle's only got 2.8% of their populations responded.
So we do. We really do want
Yeah.
more
I mean,
people to participate. And just standing here is great. It's gone up by 8 already. But it is something we do want, parents to tell each other, hey, ask each other, if you filled it out, please go fill it out.
And we have no way in knowing if it's duplicate
we've told it not to only allow, well, I mean, we've asked
Right.
collect one email, but people could put in different
Use
emails
different
and try to get around it.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
No, absolutely. So please ask anytime. So another piece of news that came out today. We had planned by asking parents about the concerns about their own children having masks. The governor announced today that the state would be providing each student 5 cloth masks. So right now, about 11% of our students have said that would be a concern. 88% said they'd be able to provide their own. But that was dropped today. So for Pender County, we're looking at somewhere around 50,000 masks, cloth masks that we're going to need. And then we also, we really worked hard back in March to do what we called wellness checks, where literally our staff called every single student we could get a hold. And we asked some of these same internet questions, but we wanted to ask again. Things change. And I think we shared the map that has come out that's a very powerful visual map that displays the broadband access that's in Pender County. And so this kind of followed up on that with asking what was their access, how reliable was it, what kind of access. One of the things that Dr. Blumenreich and I were talking about just earlier is, to really participate, it's not just having kind of a cell phone that has occasional connection. You really need to have a strong, reliable connection to do online learning. So that was one thing we really wanted to tweeze out, because we had a lot of people that did say they had it. But when we dug into the information, we had a lot of people that they didn't have it at home, but they were having to go to a neighbor or go to a grandparent or a friend, which certainly impacts a student's ability to really participate compared to someone who can just wake up and go downstairs and they're good to go. So this will be something that we'll be looking at and trying to understand better. One of the things under a Plan B is that our students would be with us at least part of that week, so we can, while they're there, we can download and make sure before they leave with their Chromebook or other device that they have everything, so we won't be as dependent on going home to have it as we were in March, April, and May. So that is one thing that we will be adapting to, thankfully, in this circumstance. It is also one of the reasons that we've been very reluctant to do longer stretches, because while you can look at New Hanover, and it's nearly covered with broadband access. Some of the other districts are almost completely covered. That's not true for Pender, and so we really want to stay away from that unless we just don't have that option. So I think that's kind of the quick synopsis, and of course we did allow people to give us comments, and we'll start going through those and gathering their questions and their concerns and their thoughts and begin formulating ways to get that information back out to our parent community. I think, Dr. Hill, it's kind of a quick summation of where we are.
So this survey will stop on Thursday evening?
Thursday night, I think
At
we can let it go
midnight.
till midnight, but let it go as long as we can.
And then you'll have a plan for us to vote on Tuesday, July 21st, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's the summit. We're looking at 3 points of data here to try to make sure we're listening to everybody. And of course, the state and their recommendations, which we got just out, an hour or so ago. And whatever changes, what we're finding out is a lot of times there's an announcement and there's clarifications that come in 48 hours. We'll take that with the stakeholder data, which includes parents, community, local government officials, lots of emergency services, DHHS, DSS. EMS, law enforcement, been tremendous to work with, the parent groups we work with, and now we're trying to collect staff data. So you're looking at stakeholder data, staff data, state data. There's 3 points we're trying to pull together to focus in on exactly which one of those 4 that we recommended. You can see right now, I'm sorry. I apologize, I forgot the little red light. But basically what you can see right now from those 3 groups of data, which is, again, I'll repeat for our viewers, which is we're looking at stakeholder data, which is basically community stakeholders, including parents, family members, local government, emergency services, including DHHS, DSS, law enforcement, and EMS as well. The idea is to take the stakeholder data, the parent data that we're currently collecting to help us pinpoint some of those things, and then the updates from the state, because they're guiding this with requirements and guidance, and wait for that 48 hours of, sometimes we get a lot of clarification data after the big announcements are made, to put that together and focus in on one of those 4 that you saw in this survey will be recommended to this board on July 21st, based on all that input from our community. As you see, our teachers really want to see that face-to-face. We've shied away for our unique situation in Pender, where we have different streaks of broadband and things like that. So one of the challenges is Wi-Fi or broadband. And so to basically make sure that we ensure that our kids are receiving ongoing instruction, we just felt like as educators that it was difficult for them to go more than a week. You see 3-week rotations in some areas, but for our kids to be out for 2 weeks with no direct instruction, also best practice as far as education is to have that face-to-face instruction. So as Dr. Aiken pinpointed, as you see on the survey, it seems like a heavy lenience towards having our kids see somebody every 3rd day. Within 2 days a week, that'd be face-to-face. So I feel like that's the direction we're heading based on everything we're hearing and talking and discussing as far as best practices for this county. So yes, sir, on the Tuesday the 21st, expect a recommendation.
Are you done? You're done with that, right, projector? Can we turn the lights back on?
Oh, yes, yes, sir.
I feel like I'm sitting in
In
the
the dark.
So question on the 2-day, 1-day, 2-day option. Would the same group go Monday, Tuesday every week?
Yes, sir. That would, everything we've seen is that provides the predictability for the community. So if they need to set up daycare, if they need to set up job work, everything we're seeing is that, initially it was switch it every day, but for the parent side, and then honestly from the teacher side, if I know I've got you 2 days in a row, I have a greater ability to really dive in. And so the way I was explaining to one person was, when I taught high school, it was the 50-minute lessons, and about the time you get started, the bell would ring and the kids are going off. When we shifted to the block schedule and you had 90 minutes, well, you could really get a lot more done. And I think it's sort of the same approach by having the students back-to-back days. You know that you're going to be able to really continue that lesson going forward. And then since we're able to do Plan B, we know that we can have those students with their Chromebooks download what we want them to work on for those days they're not there. And that provides, anything from either practice, it could be a pre-assessment going into the next one, so now I know how you did. It could be a project, but now you've downloaded it, so I don't have to worry about whether you can access that. And for our youngest students, it could be I send you with the book. Previously, we had to, hope that you got it or that you came in. So I think the idea was that between trying to provide some regularity maybe for the workforce and then also for our teachers to be able to really have 2 straight days of intense instruction before they would leave. Can I answer your question?
So if we went Monday, Tuesday, and the Wednesday day, is staff out that day? Staff is at the?
Yeah, the idea would be that's sort of everyone's virtual, and then it could provide a couple of things. So one would be it would allow our teachers a chance to check on the online work that students have been doing. It provides a chance for professional learning communities and department meetings for them to get together during the day and have some time to do that. Based on the calendar and the unknown, it may be one of the few chances we have to do even mini sessions with professional development. For example, when we had to leave, we needed to do a lot of PD for our teachers because it wasn't something we'd really been planning on except, one teacher or a group of teachers at a time. So we had a lot of teachers that got together and did mini sessions that, could be half an hour to an hour long. And actually, Mr. Lawson did a lot of videos that were kind of mini lessons on various online things. So one thing we could look at is that being a day where we can have them in the day and allow them to do some professional development. So the day almost becomes kind of a series of possibilities for our staff. And it may be a chance for the principals to do a staff meeting on that Wednesday so that we're not having to keep them after hours, because they are going to potentially have to check on their in-person and then check on their online kids at the same time.
On our health professional side of that, it allows us to sanitize.
Right.
So you have a group, a day to sanitize and sit overnight. Then you would have, looking at that number 1 or number 2 option right there. Then you'd have a B group, a day to sanitize, and another day for it to sit, and then repeat the process.
So with that Wednesday, or I'm using Wednesday as an example, we hadn't voted on anything, but Wednesday, Friday, whichever day we take off. So that would not be, how does that count towards a student day, towards the calendar requirement? I mean, if they're not having to log in or do any virtual learning that day. How do we meet that requirement for the calendar?
That's actually, I was going to, Dr. Bloomer, I might give the technical part of it. Under Plan B, I think a lot of the calendar things that we had before all this might be different because we've been ordered to send them home, so we can't have them all in school at the same time.
Right.
Part of the what we have to turn in for the state is how would we kind of look at what attendance would look like for online instruction. And what we did in March through the spring was kind of a variety of things. So we had the face-to-face hangouts. We would look at what students were showing up for that. We took a look at through ClassLink. We can see which students are logging in through that to access some of the other websites. Google Classroom allows us to see who's logged into their classroom and looking at that. For K-5, we're going to go ahead and purchase Seesaw, which was a platform that a lot of our schools had been using independently. But we're going to go ahead and purchase that, and through that we would be able to see kind of who's been checking in and who's been accessing their assignments. I think one critical difference would be that because we know we've got them coming back, we would be able to set up a regular routine where now there's an expectation, since we know you had it when you left, we're not as reliant on the concerns about we don't know where you are, we don't know what you've been doing. So this way, when it comes to student feedback and grading, it's just a regular part of what we do, as opposed to what we had in the spring where we kind of had this model. The model was crashed, and then suddenly we were trying to figure out what's a quote-unquote fair way to do it. But if we can get this up and running in Plan B, and if we have expectations for what attendance looks like, and I think we've been discussing trying to formalize a lot of the ones that we were sort of qualitatively looking at in the spring, make those expectations that you should be able to sign in, or when you come back on, say, Monday, we knew you had the work when you left, you were in attendance to receive that instruction. So much like homework now, there's a much greater expectation that you should have been able to do it.
So that was my next question. How are we going to communicate that this is a little more different than the spring? Because the spring, unfortunately, a lot of people took that as an early spring, extended spring break that extended to the fall. And, I've heard parents and students say they didn't really get anything out of that. I mean, it was kind of, we logged in every once in a while and
Right.
we got to see our friends sometimes on Google Hangouts, but as far as actually absorbing, I don't think a whole lot of that went on for the most part. How do we communicate that this is different? You're expected to do these
Right.
assignments, and this is a grade now. It's not a P whatever or
Right.
N whatever. You're going to get a grade.
Right.
And then the same thing with our our staff. How do we make sure that we're all on board? That this is we're having to do this, unfortunately, but it's this is what we have to do. It's not just a
This
fill
is
gap.
right. Now this is going to be
Who
school.
knows how long? It could be a month or two, or it could be the whole school year.
So one of the things that we're going to be looking through is creating professional development on that, not for staff and for students and for parents. And actually, Mr. Riley and I have already started talking along with Kevin Taylor, who's kind of been heading up a lot of our social, emotional, and sort of the nursing side of things, medical side. And one of the things we'd like to do is create a series of, shorter videos. What does school look like? Everything from literally getting on a bus to what does the classroom look like, to what does movement look like, to what does sort of an orientation for here's how your school, if you're cohort A or cohort B, here's how that's going to look. And then, just all kinds of videos on that. And then, kind of like what we talk about with PBIS, we will have to spend the first several days, and probably that's going to translate to 2 weeks, because it's really only going to be 4 days each, talking with the students and saying this is the new expectation, that grading and the feedback loop, that was something that, for all whatever intentions, good or not, that were handed down to us. This school is now going to be different. School is still going to be school with the feedback loop and instruction, direct instruction, followed by you practicing, followed by you demonstrating a skill, whether that be partly the next time you're in person or through the work that we know you left with, unlike last time where we couldn't verify whether you had it or not. We had to assume that you had it. But I think, and that's one of the other things with the distance learning that really want to kind of get away from. You know, it was really thrust on us. It was something we've talked about in education a lot. We all know that we're moving to a greater use of both in-person and online teaching, but what happened was an overnight process. Really, we know that long-term, blended learning is the way that we are going as a society anyway. I don't think we expected it to have to be overnight.
No,
but
I really didn't expect it to be kindergartners having to do it either.
correct. Well, and you know,
I see
it's funny. I mean, our staff is, you know, really struggling with this idea of just K2. You know, K5 really, but K2 especially. And it's one of those things where, as a parent, I would fight, you know, tooth and nail against having my kindergartner learning how to read online. But, you know, when the governor comes out and says you have to provide that as an option, then I can talk to a parent and say, I wouldn't do it. But as a parent, you've got to make that decision with whatever things you're concerned about and factoring in. You know, our teams are working really hard on how we're going to do both the plan B and also provide that opportunity. And already actually both directors and the principal teams have sent in some initial drafts. And one of the things that we're going to try to do is it's not going to be, or we're going to try hard, I won't say what it is and won't, but our goal is that it's not going to be this other thing that's over here. We want to work hard that if my parent says to me, I don't want you going to school, but I do want still Pender County to, you know, work with Pender County, then we want to try to assign you to a class like anybody else. It's just that you will be primarily working through online measures, but you'll be doing the same work because, you know, our staff did do an amazing job shifting a whole lot of stuff online in the spring. So we really are trying hard not to create an other situation.
Cindy, is your phone on mute?
No, I'm on.
All right, because we're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if it's coming from your phone or our equipment.
No, I've heard it too. I've heard it too. It's not from mine. I'm in a secluded area.
I do have a question. Brad, do you want to interrupt? Do you have anything?
I have, but go ahead.
Okay. I do have a concern with parents that have a child in the high school, child in the middle school, child in elementary school, and multiple children, and then you've got them trying to find child care or find someone to be there.
Someone muted you. Press *6 to unmute.
Okay. And so if you've got that, then are we going to try to get these lined up so if you got a kid at Malpas Corner and a kid at West Pender, that they're on the same Monday, Tuesday schedule? So
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, that's exactly what we're going to try to do. We actually started working with our transportation department on that today, and then we actually met with some of the high school principals afterward.
And Carrie, the wonderful Carrie Hankins has been able to pull a sibling report, create one so that at the school level they can pull who the siblings are at what particular schools, so we can align all of those.
and who's going to be, we're talking about masks that are now being required for even the kindergartners. So we're putting an extra burden on our teachers to have to be the mask police. Is there certain, if a child that's an EC child, that as a parent of an EC child, I know my son, thankfully is not in school anymore. He's at the age of as an adult, but I could not imagine him having something confined because he does, part of his EC is not even wanting something touching his face. So how do we address that? You know, if the little Johnny that's in kindergarten that is learning how to do his name keeps pulling his mask off, I mean, what actual instructions are going to be done?
So that's, I would call that an onion that has a whole lot of layers to it. And I don't have all the answers. What I will tell you is at least up until today, and then like Dr. Hill said, we'll see what the details are that come out. Prior to today, there had been exceptions still in place for either medical or behavioral reasons. You know, some students have very sensitive issues with touch. And so we had been given exceptions, but we'll see what those details are because that had been kind of a 6-12 thing. And we were already going to work with some of our students that have adaptive or have medical conditions. We have medical fragile students that come in. We do have students with severe asthma. Those are some things that we're waiting to get some feedback on what that looks like. The other layer that you mentioned that I think is something that districts are going to have to work on is this issue of now we've added another element the teachers and principals are going to have this issue of how we're supposed to supervise this. And I think that's something that's going to warrant further discussion. As far as the details of the exceptions to the rule, we'll wait and see. There were some that already existed before today. I don't know what that will look like tomorrow.
And does a face shield, is it considered the same as a face mask? That if a child were to wear a face shield, even though I heard that the state is going to provide 5 cloth masks,
Yes, sir.
which they wear these masks. They're going to have germs in them all throughout the day. They're breathing in this stuff. I'm definitely not a supporter of this.
Right.
I think it's, you should have a free will as a parent, what your child wears or not wear. But I do believe that we need to at least let our opinions be known that even if a face shield, something like that you see at the supermarket where
Right.
the cashiers have this on, I would be willing to buy it out of my own pocket if that was an option.
We are actually, to the question about the mask, I would say that is something that we have been asking. Local and state health departments, does a face shield count the same? Until today, the answer has been no. They were considered different. The reasons that we were given was because the face shield, air particles can still come out and go around. We have seen new ones that are being developed that are reversed. So if you think about a face shield being fitting here, coming down, there are now face shields that are being built that you kind of wear as a collar and they go up. And we were actually going to try to pilot some of those because, of course, not only the health issue, but we have kindergarten teachers, speech teachers who are teaching basics of reading, and the idea of the adult and the student having to wear a mask, which is going to muffle some of the reading, has been something we've been trying to figure out how we get around. We are piloting for our summer learning, and then working with Mr. LaFawn, we're going to be purchasing a lot of those, basically like a plexiglass shield for the table. And as we figure out what a classroom is going to look like under social distancing, but one of the things we'd already planned on was trying to buy these kind of see-through dividers that would even have a little space at the bottom to be able to pass a book, back and forth between the teacher and the student, but have those so that students could be sitting with each other. One of the principals already asked if we have that, does that necessitate the mask, and vice versa? If we have the mask, do we have to have the plexiglass? And to be honest, I don't know the answer to that
And
yet.
I know you have no control over this, but the governor has dictated something for us to do
Correct.
as a board, and now we're having to come up with this plan of action to build a program that is just complete nonsense that we are being asked to do this. And I'm totally against the idea of a kindergartner having to wear a mask all day, and who's going to be responsible for making sure that mask is clean.
Right.
And it just adds to it. And at what point does local control over our school system that we have lost and have handed it over to Raleigh?
It's something that
You
when
don't
it
have
first
to
came
agree
out,
to that, or
well,
you-
what I will say on behalf of our principals is that is something like dress code. When you
Yeah.
start talking about, well, what's length, and it has always put our staff in a difficult situation. And this one is something that we've talked about as a cabinet, and that we were going to need to talk more about, because that moment's going to occur.
Okay.
And when we ask a principal to enforce something, it's unfair to ask them to enforce an ambiguousness. Our staff has to have some clarity about that. So I don't dispute
The
you.
only reason I'm asking all this is because my phone is burning up right now with emails left and right, and text messages and Facebook messages and everything. People are watching
masks.
this, and people are now panicking that, like I said, little Johnny going to Malpas Corner kindergarten this year for the first time. It's hard enough to get him to come to school for the first time, scared, and then now having to add even this to the teacher and the student.
One of the things we are going to try to do, and I don't know that it'll relieve everything, but in working with Mr. Riley and with Mr. Taylor, part of the videos we're going to make are going to trying to be to relieve some of that, show what school will look like, try to make it so the first time they see it's not literally when they walk in, that they'll have at least had some video experience or something to try to make it. And that some schools around the country have done some really good examples of what that could look like. That doesn't solve it, but it's at least one step that we're going to try to take so that it doesn't feel as abnormal, unfortunately, as it may be for a while.
Mr. Smith and board, I just really want to get something across while the public is paying attention. we're not going to be able to come up with all the answers. We're not going to have a perfect plan. We'll never say that we have the answers to everything. This is an ongoing situation. It is a state of emergency, and we are triaging. This is just like a hurricane, trees across your street. You got water today, you don't tomorrow. And that's how we're going to have to handle it, is basically day by day. So what happens, I mean, we'll be here, we've sit for days. What happens when 3 kids get it, 4 kids, 5 kids, a teacher, a staff somebody went to a party this weekend and thought they were exposed. What we're developing is a process for that to go through, where we have health professionals at DHHS and our nurses working together to look at those individual cases, make decisions. We're trying to put in processes, and that's what we need a community to understand. There's not going to be anything that we put on this table to vote on that's going to answer all the questions. All we can do is develop a solid process to start dealing with those things as they happen. And anything can change. I mean, I think we need to understand is that what we understand from Raleigh is this is how we are starting. And the governor even indicated today, you got 3 weeks. He's not guaranteeing you that we'll start with a B plan in 3 weeks. You know, if you go back and listen to everything that he was saying. So I just want the community to understand that this is us working literally in a state of emergency, hand in hand with all the agencies in this county, and that we need to be considerate with our staff. We need to work together as a community, and just like we did with Florence and everything else in our history, human beings come together in a state of emergency. That's what we need from our parents, because this is going to be difficult, and there will be questions and what ifs, and we're going to do what is the best thing for our students. I guarantee you that.
And I understand, Dr. Hill, that y'all are working on call-in numbers and.
Yes, sir. We're actually trying to develop some sort of COVID emergency
Response.
line, so that if people go, where's the bus? I mean, I know in a perfect state, in a perfect world, we like that bus to be in a 10 to 15 minute window showing up. So what happens, you know, and there's 10 what ifs here, but what happens if, you know, now, you know, the student's supposed to be checked getting on the bus, all of a sudden one student gets on, he tests positive, or not tests positive, but has a fever, or says he has a cough, or has a complaint that meets one of the symptoms. The parents already left for work.
Right.
So that bus is stopped right there. So what happens to the other 18 kids along that route? We're not leaving that kid sitting there by himself. You know, you can't transport it based on what we know now. So those are situations that we're going to have to work out, where those 18 parents are going to have to kind of give understanding that we are working on an alternative bus situation for the rest of that route at this time. And we're going to have to create almost an EOC type situation, Emergency Operations Center, where we're going to be responding on a daily basis to whatever situations are happening inside the largest organization in Pender County.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jordan, I think you said you had a.
The Cape Fear Community College has said that they're going back face to face as of right now. So the Pender Early College, will they follow one of these plans too, or will they be a standalone where they'll?
So yesterday we received, I didn't print it, but I'm guessing if I printed it, it was a multi-page length email from Cape Fear that outlined 4 or 5 different things they may have any of their classes in. So our first step is to figure out which of those models our students may be falling in, because they had described face-to-face, full online, several different versions of hybrid based on the type of class. So that email was received yesterday. Ms. Brown, myself, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Woolen-Waber, because a lot of it's CTE, because it's not just Pender Early, but we have students at other places. So our first step will be obviously trying to figure out, well, where do our kids fall in that? With transportation and other things, Pender Early is always kind of ends up on its own because it's not our calendar. So one of the things we'll have to be doing is trying to figure out what does Plan B look like when the campus belongs to one entity, but the students, or at least half the students in that building, belong to a different entity. So it's always operated on a slightly different schedule. Generally, Cape Fear does not have Friday classes, so we'll have to look at how does that calendar fit. So the degree that it's with the other 17, or the degree that's with Pender Early, with Cape Fear Community, I don't know that quite yet for you. It's something we'll have to look out based on what we got today from the governor. We are still planning on opening August 6th. I mean, the calendar has not changed.
So Q referenced in her press, or whatever it was called last week.
Immediate release that came out.
Immediate release that she did
High
last
School
week,
Athletic Association.
that she was waiting on today's verdict, and then she sent out an email today saying that they still really don't know as of yet. I know I've been asked several times, I know there's people watching that's concerned about high school athletics. at this point in time, we know nothing other than
Correct.
what's already been released. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Mr. Taylor and I were texting a little bit, trying to guess when they may, have that meeting. We've talked. Right now, our plan is to kind of take day by day, continue what we've been doing. The turnout has been good, and we don't want to cut that off since we don't know what the next step's going to be, not only for that, but things like marching band and some of our other events that involve lots of students near each other doing things. Marching, playing the instruments, sharing equipment. So right now, she released an email 15 minutes after the governor, so I'm assuming it was ready to hit send on. We're hoping, this week, but they gave zero indication of when they're going to make that change, or when they're going to make any changes, or if they're going to say, let's go for it, and we're going to start the season. So
Does it apply to pre-K since he said it was for kindergarten through 12th grade?
that's something we're going to double check. In Pender County, we use it's kind of half our program, and we use it in our building. So my understanding would be that it would fall more into that than the daycare rules, which have also been released separately. So that's something we're going to have to double check. We generally have operated that the pre-K program mimics our K-12 program for a lot of reasons, including the fact that most of those parents fit into both worlds. They have a slightly different calendar, but that's to allow for some of their specific rules. But since they're in our buildings, we generally do the same thing. And we actually have a meeting later this week to start trying to figure that out. We'd already scheduled even before this got released.
I know this has drug on longer than it probably should have, but I do have just one more question that I've been asked. There's already organizations and people advertising that they will take your students on the days that they're not in school. That's already hit the market.
Okay.
What is our plan for our PACES program? What are our after-school programs, or is there opportunity for us to offer some kind of assistance? There's one that's advertising tutoring, and they'll keep your kid, your school-age kid during the day while on the days that they're
working.
not attending school.
Ms. Lofton, who's been our PACES director, we have already started trying to look at what are some unique ways we can do PACES. So actually, Mr. Smith, the other part of that same question is, what are the rules for after school?
Yeah.
And that is also something we're trying to wait to determine. So we had already tried to figure out what are some different ways we can use PACES. Are there ways that we can take advantage of COVID funding and try to hire our PACES staff maybe to do exactly what you just described, Mr. George, or be tutors or be substitutes, trying to create, how are we going to create a pool of substitutes that we can assign to a school, knowing that we're going to have the likelihood of suddenly finding out a staff member won't be able to be at school. I would say that of all the things we've heard, that's been one of the most concerning or challenging questions for our staff, is what to do on the days that I'm teaching but my child is not assigned to be in school, or for our parents, what do I do on the 3 days a week when I need to go to work, and where do I send my student that's safe and good for them? So it's all on the table. We talked with our Pender government folks about also looking at sites, because our schools will have kids in them. So we may have fewer in per classroom, but we'll be using all the same classrooms again. So, we started talking about other sites around the county that maybe we could try to start, a program in that particular building, or host tutoring programs, in other buildings around the county. And they started offering that as a resource. So it's another one that we're going to have to work on, and we're working on it. I just don't have an answer for you right now.
I understand. It's troubling that, it's not the 1950s and 60s when parent stayed home most of the time. Now in today's society, both parents have to work for the most part, and you worry about where Johnny's going to be at while you're at work, and that's a big concern with parents.
Absolutely.
Most understand that this is beyond our doings. This is
Right.
something we're dictated to do.
And I think
Sorry to take up all your time. But
Oh, no,
Yes,
sir. That's
I
what
think
we're here
it's a healthy
for.
conversation for
Yeah.
everybody to hear.
And I think, the one other thing I was saying to our staff is, our staff are people that have to find childcare too. And I think I'd want the community to always remember that the staff are no different than everybody else.
right.
They've got a
They gotta
workforce.
work.
It's just their work is coming and taking care of somebody else's
Right.
child.
That's true.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think it's the next item for you.
You're there too for Perkins Grant.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, mask on, I got a Perkins grant, yes.
I was gonna sit there and clean and, so, yes, sir, I just wanted to, mention in consent, I wasn't sure how much time I would have, so, but this is, we've talked to you before about our Perkins 5, so that federal law regarding CTE was renewed, is now called Perkins 5, and is a major shift in the emphasis for what we do with our CTE programs. We have spent the summer basically writing a whole new plan. The things that I'm most excited about are some of the newer programs that we're going to begin offering our students. These are going to be aligned to regional workforce needs, but we're really moving toward that science and engineering while not leaving behind some of our other popular programs. But we've already had staff step up to try to achieve things like robotics. We're looking at coding, really getting into that field and starting all the way down in middle school. We're working hard within that grant to see if we can figure out a way to get a middle school CTE coordinator who could really help our middle school program and then filter the students up. We now have our STEM labs at all of the middle schools that will go into effect August 17th. So I think one of the things we're just really excited about is now we have a 6-12 program. We're working hard to get apprenticeships and internships. One of the things that we're looking at is, despite what we've just been talking about for the last hour, really finding ways that our students, even when they're not in school, could be working in the field as an apprenticeship and getting credit for that. That's sort of a new angle that we've not really dealt with before that would be perfect for these kind of scenarios that we're looking at for this year. We are working hard on catching up licensures and professional development. But these programs, some of these programs will start going into effect this year, and then others will be coming online as some of our students matriculate up. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that we spent the time asking our students to fill out those surveys back in the fall, and when you look at the survey results to the courses we're going to now be offering, it's pretty darn close that we're hitting the things they said they needed and they wanted to participate in. So in the consent area, we're ready to move forward and just going to be asking for the board to approve so that we can send it to the feds and we can get our money and start buying and paying for our teachers and paying for our new programs. And then in texting with Flani, when we're allowed and able, we would like to invite the board to come out to some of our new programs so that we can kind of show off some of the new things that we're going to be doing. So I would have said September. Not really sure when we can do that based on number of people in a building and a classroom, but just know that we are looking forward to inviting you out to come see our new STEM labs and our new programs, especially in the coding and robotics and some of the engineering ones, including drones. We actually have a teacher who's been willing to try to take on drone work. So exciting stuff, and at some point we want you to come out and see it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. LaFawn, you have the next 3 items. This is Heidi Trask High School Athletic Field Sound System Replacement.
Good evening, board members. We're going to start bringing some small projects to your attention that are going on that will be going on around the county, that are for renovations or replacements of equipment or areas that need attention. There are several on the agenda tonight, one of which is replacing the sound system at Heidi Trask Athletic Complex there. Bids were taken. The winning bid was $11,549. It will greatly increase the effectiveness of the sound system and will something that is needed.
I couldn't, this is just me talking.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't see what it provides. Like the other quotes that had the equipment, is this pretty comparable to what The other ones?
Yes, sir. What we did was we sent NC Sound's quote. We took the basis of it, and this gyree basically is matching what
Equipment-wise.
NC Sound equipment-wise.
Back years ago, a few years ago, not that many years ago, this was a athletic booster's responsibility. Is that something now that we're taking on as a district?
I would like to see us take that on. That would be before my time, Mr. George, but I would like to see us start doing some things like that with our capital outlay on small projects, yes, sir.
Good deal.
To some degree with the disruption in athletics, some of those funds, I keep forgetting this thing. Just as a backup to that, there's been a lot of disruptions to athletics, so I think Mr. LaFawn's trying to work with the ADs as much as possible.
Yeah, I
with some
remember
of these projects.
we had a athletic boosters, we had fundraisers at Topsail to replace that one, just a few years back. So it's good. I mean, we can do it. We'll just do it for all the schools.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I can attest to how badly it's needed, because I was out there for Pender early college graduation and Heidi Trask graduation, and
Yeah.
it's needed.
Oh, it is. And it's probably like that at all three, because in
Yeah.
the NC Sound, I noticed they have visitor side speakers. I think Heidi Trask will be the only stadium that actually has visitor side speakers if they do that. 'Cause the rest of them are just sitting on top of the press box, and the other two, that's the sound system.
Yes, sir.
Good
Second,
deal.
sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. The second item is also part of this, small project. This is a crawl space under the stage at Virgo Elementary School. It needs to be sealed. It needs to be taken it so that it will no longer be a hot spot for getting water and mold growth and things like that. Once we get it sealed and taken care of, then we're going to replace the door that's also on the outside that needs to be replaced, but that will be a separate project. I want to get it cleaned up and sealed first. That was $25,186.70. And we'll probably be seeing several of these coming up too that are COVID readiness projects. This one is replacing the urinal screens system-wide. Again, bids were taken. In this case, it's federal dollars, so 3 bids were taken for the project. And Seven Oaks Doors and Hardware submitted the low bid, and they are also going to perform the installation for us. It's something that our folks don't have to do. And that's $21,627.55, and that will be paid for from the CARES Act.
That's good. See it. At work, all they did was mark one of them off. They just shut one of them down. That probably wouldn't work too good in a school, because they still probably try to use it, but
Yes, sir.
we lost one.
Well, we don't want to lose any, but we are going to make the screens taller. And install screens where there are none in some places. Thank you.
So you got,
Oh, Eagle Scout.
We got a
Eagle
couple-
Scout project here.
That's
yeah, we
consent.
got plenty more for you.
That's
Oh, is it?
consent.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
I'll be glad to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, remind me to talk to you about it, because I know a few Eagle Scouts who are coming up. And if we have any projects like that for the schools that you can maybe think of, since you're out and about and looking at everything, we can talk about that after the
Yes,
meeting though, but yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. All right, the consent agenda. Anybody have any, think you answered most things? So,
Chair, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
all right, we have a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, Cindy, that was aye, correct?
Yep.
Cindy,
Yes.
okay. All right, unanimous, thank you. Action agenda.
Dr. Aiken?
Yep, and if Dr. Akins, you have item 9 and 10, both for some EC service contracts. Does anyone have any questions on either one of them for Dr. Aiken?
I have no questions.
Any questions?
Just happy to see it, yeah.
All right, and for item 9, Coastline Therapy Group, can we have a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the presentation of the Coastline Therapy Group LLC EC service contracts.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, Ms.
Point of
Burns.
clarification, Board, there are 5 contracts. You'll see that on the Précis sheet. Just, there's a form contract that's the same for every single one. There were only one included in your board packet, just as an FYI. Want to make sure everybody caught that. Any
Okay.
questions?
Everybody okay with that?
We're okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Suzanne Huggins, I'm sorry, for EC Services contract. This is item 10. We have a motion for approval. This is for vision impaired, I think, services, correct? Yes. All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, make a motion to approve the contract for the EC services of Susanna Huggins.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And Mr. George seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. All right, Dr. Aiken, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Blumenreich has the next item, purchase of Chromebooks. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Blumenreich?
I have a question about one he's already answered,
How many were missing?
sir. Yeah, the missing, I think you got the number on the missing Chromebooks was 500.
Approximately 500, yes, sir, and broken out by school. We have
Okay,
that
there's
information.
About 25% of them that were returned were damaged.
Of all the ones that were returned, there was damage to the about $25,000 range.
Okay.
So,
And so, what is the plan of action then that we have for
so
getting back the property when they return to school?
well, I have identified with Mr. Allen the top 3 schools, and so we're going to be getting in touch with them first thing in the morning. And at this particular point, unless the parents drop off the equipment, we're going to have to go directly to their houses to get it. Not the best situation, you know, given pandemic and all, but
Have we done all call or anything like that, saying if you got a Chromebook, return the Chromebook?
we have pushed out to the schools. We've also pushed out multiple emails, but we can do a district-wide.
Okay.
And just to clarify, Mr. Smith, it's important we get them back, obviously, to ensure that they're up to speed for what they need to be doing technology-wise, but we also have to sanitize them.
Right.
So we need time to do that. We've had people dedicated doing nothing but disinfecting and sanitizing computers for days to make sure they're clean and ready to go.
So what's the plan when we hand them back out? Is there gonna be a form when we sign that you don't bring them back, you pay for it, or?
Well, that would be the board's decision. We have a form ready to roll. So predicated on what the board would like to see happen, we can do that, absolutely. And so we've got the draft documents ready to go and insert the language. We have a variety of circumstances. One of them can be total replacement costs for damages, lost goods, things of that nature. We also have a tiered setup that we've not really floated at this particular time, because at the time that we needed to hand out the Chromebooks, it was turn around and get them into the hands of all the students as quickly as possible. So I think a lot of it depends on what all of you would like to see us do.
And that'll be part of that clarification and the coming after we select the scenario that we're gonna do next week. So we'll be working on that throughout the rest of July to put that together for you in a detailed presentation.
How much are we paying for how much are we paying for?
One
a
Chromebook with shipping, all applications and licenses is approximately $230. And they last for a good 5 years, as long as the dog doesn't eat the charger or
Gotcha.
sibling doesn't hit their sister in the head with it or things like that.
Gotcha.
Is there an insurance we could offer as a option?
We can, and I've spoken with Chuck about that, and he feels that the cost of repair, because it's, at this point, Chromebooks are a commodity, they're relatively inexpensive for what they are, that the cost of the insurance there would not be a good return on the investment for what they need to do to repair it. If it's a screen, you
Cheaper
can
just
pick up a screen,
replacement.
it's $25, things like that. It's just cheaper with so many of the other Chromebooks that they have that,
No, I wasn't talking about us buying the insurance.
Yes,
I was
yes,
talking about-
absolutely, passing on the cost
Right.
too. And in other districts, including one that I worked in previously, where we did a rollout with one-to-one, we passed on the cost of the insurance to the students and the parents. It's workable, but again, Mr. Allen doesn't feel like it's that cost-effective given how inexpensive the devices are.
They're inexpensive till you start buying hundreds of them, and then they start getting expensive.
That is correct, that is correct, absolutely.
When you got to buy 650 of them, it's pretty steep price.
That's correct. That's correct. And that covers about the numbers that we are not getting back.
So we have to purchase them, we got to have them.
Yep.
So I make a motion then to approve the purchase of the Chromebooks as presented in the packet.
All right, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. George seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And next item is the Virgo Middle School door replacement. Mr. LaFawn.
Short legs.
Mr. LaFawn, this is for the Virgo Middle School door replacement. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. LaFawn?
Make a motion to approve the, Burgal Middle School door replacement as presented by Mr. LaFawn.
All right, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. And Mr. LaFawn again, sink partitions, splashguard installation. Anyone have any questions? All right, do we have a motion for approval?
I make a motion, we approve.
All right, Mr. George has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. And final item, Pender High School restroom renovation. Anyone have any questions on that for Mr. LaFawn?
How many restrooms was that, Mr. LaFawn, that will be renovated at Pender High School?
They're gonna do them all.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
All right,
I make a motion that we approve the Pender High School restroom renovation as presented.
all right, motion's been made by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Ms. Burns. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you.
That was easy, I like it that way.
There you go.
Mr. LaFawn, I had a question for you, Ayers, if you don't mind. Well, you know I'm
Not
asked.
getting away
yeah,
that
I mean,
easily.
You're my guy. At West Pender Middle School, they were, requesting or said that they would like to have some speakers put on the outside whenever they're making announcements. If somebody was on the field, has that been looked at yet?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Okay, I appreciate it, and you're working really hard. Thank you so much.
We're working on it. Principal mentioned that to me, we are working on it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, comments from board members.
Mr. Chair, can I offer a amendment to the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Can we move item 15 to before comments from board members?
Sure. Everyone, want to make a motion?
I make that motion.
I'll second the
Okay.
motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? I think no, it's unanimous. Item 15, the Human Resource Report and Addendum. Do we have a motion for approval on that?
Make a motion, we approve the HR Human Resources Report and addendum.
All right.
I'll
Mr.
second the
George has a
motion.
motion. Mr. Smith has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you. Yes, thank you. We've already done our closed session. Comments from board members. Start with Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Hall. I want to personally go on record and just say that, recently Pender County Schools and the Board of Education, has been brutally attacked, for things that are just not, accurate. That this board is doing everything they can to make sure that every child, regardless of gender, regardless of, the color of their skin or even their economic background, that I can firmly believe that Pender County Schools is doing everything they can to make sure that we're providing the highest quality education and that our teachers are doing that. And so I wanted to make sure that it is clear that we do take concerns, and I do believe that if any parent, teacher, or staff member has a concern, they should feel free to come and do go through the proper channels to make that known, that we will listen and we will take it serious. But I do want to say, based on some of the comments that I hear in the community, that we do have a lot of people to understand that this is, we are the largest employer in Pender County. More people come into our school system like a small city, and that I feel like that we're doing a great job. And we're not a small country school system. I think we're in the top
34% now,
top
sir.
34%. And so considering all these things, that of course you're going to have speed bumps in the road, but the board is definitely taking serious our matters, especially fiscal matters. I do find it troubling that we're questioned on our fiscal responsibility, because anyone that wants to see the amount of money we spend on lawyer fees, everything's public knowledge, Mr. Chairman, and everything that we are doing is above board. And I feel like that the community needs to know that we're not hiding anything like that. If it's public knowledge, they can get that information. They have to just fill out the proper way of doing it. And so I don't think any information's being hid from anyone. And so I fully just wanted to share my support for you, Mr. Chairman. I know you've been attacked in saying that this board was incompetent in doing investigations. I don't think that's what you meant. And so I don't take that as an insult for what you said on the news. I just wanted to share that support for you as the chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Burns. Anything?
Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for all the support. My mother recently passed away, and everybody with Pender County School Systems was so supportive to me. I got so many calls and texts and messages, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the support. It meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to my family. Our friend Cindy Fontana is not here tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty of also passing along her thanks. Her mother has also had a health crisis recently, and Cindy has been staying with her, but Cindy was with us tonight via the phone. Ken, I think you put it really well. Thank you. We're a good group, and we work well together, and we have no malicious intent towards anyone. And to to be accused of that, well, it hurts. But I can tell you that I'm very proud to sit where I sit, because we do good things in Pender County Schools. And I'm just going to leave it right there and say thank you.
All right, Mr. George.
Thank you, Chair. Would like to thank the staff, the teachers, everyone that's worked through this whole, I call it a nightmare daily. It's a learning process, and every time you turn the news on, you learn something different. And some things you thought you learned yesterday aren't the same things you're learning today. I know it's got to be tough to try to sit down and figure out a schedule, how to get our kids back in school, but I think we're headed down the right path, and I appreciate all the time and effort that's going into that. I failed to mention in our last meeting, we lost one of our longtime employees last month, Sarah Lachansky, over at Topsail Middle School. She passed away from a long fight with cancer. I knew Sarah for a long time, and I'd just like to offer my sympathies to her family. And Ken, Beth, I agree with both what you said. We've been defending the attorney fees since I've been on the board, shortly thereafter. We do have large attorney fees, but if you dig into it, and if people would read between the lines, we're not the only district. when the article that's being referenced now is over a year old, was put out, I was the one interviewed by Port City Daily, and the information we gave them was all inclusive of all of our attorney fees. We have one law firm. Some of these other districts and some other government agencies have more than one attorney. And you have to dig into the budgets to see other line items. And that was explained to the reporter that did that article, and he, I guess, didn't think it was worth the time to go deeper. But I defend our attorney fees. Yes, I realize they're high, but that's just the business we're in. It takes that, and I'll defend them tomorrow. That's all I have.
Thank you. Cindy?
Cindy had,
Oh, okay.
yeah, she had to go.
All right. Well, I wanted to mention I've received a lot of thank you cards relating to graduation, both ways, some in person, some thanking us for the other way that we did it. And but anyway, I just want everybody to know that I appreciate it, and I've shared it with other members here and got two that I still need to tell about it. So sorry for the surprise, y'all. I meant to tell you earlier that I'd received them, and I also drove off and left them at home. So otherwise I'd show them to you. But anyway, for those listening that sent one, you know who you are. I appreciate it, and I think the board will as well, and I will make sure that they are shared with everyone. Otherwise, I appreciate everyone's patience with this process that we're going through right now, and between the investigations and dealing with the coronavirus and so on and so forth. As you know, there's a lot, and just know from a transparency standpoint that we'll do whatever it takes to keep things that way. And everything is above board. The only comment that I've got is going to be about the investigation. And, you know, I've been told that it's not above board, so on and so forth. But the thing is, and the reality is, as far as I know, no one on this board has ever spoken with the firm or anyone involved that's investigating it. I know that I haven't. So I don't know how to be much more unbiased than that. As far as designating a board attorney, the problem is if someone is not designated as a board attorney, they don't have the ability to do an investigation. So there's no clearer way that I can put it. But that is the only reason they are designated a board attorney. They are working to get the facts. We operate on facts. Everything must be based on facts. So with that in mind, we'll see what comes of it, and we'll take appropriate action based on what the results are. But otherwise, that's all I have. Appreciate everybody that is on today listening. One day this will be over and you can come back in person. But I appreciate everyone that is online listening to us right now. And that's all I've got. Dr. Hill.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. I concur. I just want to say thank you to everybody for all the uplifting words and encouragement. Lots of positive. I continue to ask everybody to be positive in how we work, especially during this trying time. I agree, building off what Mr. Smith said, we are moving towards the top quintile as far as student population, but also towards performance if you look at our history and what we've been doing. So I'm happy to say we do reach towards the top quintile in both those areas, but we do that by mostly remaining in the lower quintile in budget areas. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck as a school system. And I think that's tremendous, and our staff should be credited for that, doing great work for these students. And if you don't believe it, just look at the people who are moving here, and just look at what the renters or what the realty companies are putting on there, you know, trying to be in this school system. We are in a unique situation that this school system is growing. It's been in the top 5 growing districts for the last 3 years that I know of, on top 3 for 2 years. You don't do that without doing something right. So thank you for your support, and I just want to thank our staff and everybody here as well. But really, with what's going on with the coronavirus and kind of the emergency situation we're in, I just want to thank our community stakeholders, our county government, all the emergency services staff and DHHS for working with us. We're just starting this for this year, and it's going to be a lot of work and continuing, and I just want to thank them for all they've done. Asked our families to be supportive, to reach out to our teachers and lift them up for the heroes that they are and that they'll continue to be this year, and we're going to do what's best for students. And we just appreciate all their support. Thank you.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. George seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Cindy she's off.
She's off.
All right. Vote is unanimous.